McGraw in the Morning continues on the Big 550 KTRS.
7-Eleven, he's the man we check in with every Wednesday. He has been there and back. He's done it twice, and we're lucky enough to talk with him every Wednesday. Sam Donaldson with ABC News. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, McGraw. Last week I couldn't hardly talk. I think I'd do a little better today.
You sound fantastic, and we love you even when you croaked through it last week. Let's talk about the Supreme Court. We're in the middle of 2 days of oral arguments about gay marriage. What were your thoughts as you watched things unfold yesterday? Well,
yesterday was Proposition 8 from California. Voters saying, no, we turned down this idea of gay marriage. And now being challenged, is that constitutional? And you saw the justices yesterday wiggle and squirm in their questioning, which is not always an accurate prediction of how they'll vote, looking for a way not to decide this. Well, is this really before us properly? I mean, is the jurisdiction properly here? And another justice very boldly putting it by saying, yes, the country's moving in that direction, but should we decide this case now? Shouldn't we wait? So I think they may just dodge that one. Today, it's does the federal government have the right to withhold payments that it gives to traditionally married people to people who are committed partners under the law. Payments from the standpoint of, for instance, death benefits, estate benefits. A woman is sued because she had to pay huge taxes on an estate that her domestic partner left her, and she says that's wrong. They may be able to reach this. Let's listen to the questions today and see how they feel.
Sam Donaldson, if I'm a Republican and I'm watching this, I don't want for the next 20 years to have this be a wedge issue every time I go to the voters. Republicans, aren't they secretly hoping that the Supreme Court takes them off the hook and takes this issue off the table?
Well, maybe so, but look what happened. The Supreme Court, in a sense, took the issue of Obamacare off the table when Chief Justice Roberts went the other way that people expected and said, no, the mandate is constitutional. And yet you saw last fall Mitt Romney making a big deal, and even now Paul Ryan, who ran as his running mate, saying that one of his objectives is to eliminate Obamacare. So if you say, well, if the Supreme Court takes them off the issue and they refuse to be taken off the issue, who can do otherwise but lament it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Scalia's joke on Strom Thurmond, did that land with a thud yesterday?
Yes, and he should have remembered what happened to Trent Lott. Remember when he was majority leader? And at Strom Thurmond's 100th birthday party, he sort of just said, well, you know, if the man had been elected president back in 1948 when he ran, we'd have fewer troubles in this country. He was just trying to be nice to an old man, and wow, it cost him his majorityship.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was also somewhat shocked at Chris Cooper, I guess is the attorney, trying to defend California's right to ban gay marriage. Didn't have a very good answer as to and said that marriage should only be for procreation purposes. Well, I mean, clearly people get married for all sorts of reasons, and oftentimes for kids, and oftentimes neither one of them are fertile to have children.
Well, that's right, but of course that's biblical. And the problem in bringing in the Bible, bringing in religion to something like this is that there's also a verse of the Bible that says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's, meaning the two don't mix in a sense. Although a lot of people in this country believe that somehow their religion should in fact be a state religion, even if they don't pay lip service to that, that's how they kind of feel. And I would agree with you that argument probably is not one that will sway the justices.
And I'm not even saying that the argument would carry the day. I just thought the way he answered it was just, he sort of bobbled it. And we have callers on the show that are more articulate than this guy who's speaking in front of the Supreme Court.
Well, I don't think he has a lot of experience before the Supreme Court, and it is an awesome thing. Think of it, if you're a lawyer and you're arguing before the Supreme Court of the United States and you're not used to it and you're not able to, dodge and weave and all of that and play the justices and letting them, of course, be the big guys and gals, you are in it. Do you remember back then when it was Gore versus Bush and the Supreme Court in 2000 had to decide the election? And one of the lawyers, kept mangling the names. And at one point he called Justice Scalia Brennan, a man who had already left the court and was dead. And Scalia said, I'm Scalia. And everybody laughed.
Well, yesterday Scalia asks, I guess, Ted Olson, When was gay marriage deemed unconstitutional? Ted Olson replies with another question back to him, and then Scalia says, "Hey, don't answer a question with a question." It almost got a little testy there.
A little testy, but Ted Olson he has great experience before the Supreme Court. He was Solicitor General at one time. So in using the Socratic method, Socrates answering a question by another question, he was dodging the issue. And Scalia, of course, understood that and understood that he wasn't getting an answer and didn't like it.
It is an interesting way to debate the highest issues of the land. These lawyers can't get two words out before another judge sort of interrupts him and sort of takes him in a different direction.
That's sort of new. Believe it or not, in the early 60s, I covered the court to some extent. And I was there for some of the famous cases from the Miranda and one man, one vote. And the justices asked questions, but not a lot. They would let the lawyers in their 30 minutes or whatever it was actually give their presentation. But over the years, particularly today, except for Justice Thomas, naturally, you start in, our view is, and wait a second, what do you mean your view is? And don't you know this case? And off they go.
See, what you're saying is Clarence Thomas being criticized for not speaking is actually the one who's doing it the way it used to be done.
Well, assuming that's right, assuming he's listening to the arguments and weighing them. Of course, they have the briefs.
Right.
The oral arguments almost never, according to justices who've spoken over the years, sway them much. They read the briefs. Their clerks read the briefs, note the cases that are the precedents for them, and they make up their minds on that. Plus, reading the election returns, right?
Interesting world. What do you think of General Petraeus and his apology tour?
Well, he started it last night. He talked to an audience in the West Coast and began a speech about the military matters by saying he was apologetic for his conduct. As he said at the time, he was wrong. And people who studied this, I know, say, that's the way to do it. You don't say, if I've offended anyone, I'm sorry. You just fall on your sword, to use a military term. You just ashes and sackcloth. I was wrong. I have no excuse. I apologize. Absolutely, and that's what he's doing, and maybe he can reconstitute his reputation, at least to some extent.
He got a standing ovation. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, he got a standing ovation at the beginning when he started, and a little bit at the end, too. That's quite correct. Of course, he was talking to an audience that is very familiar with military matters and honors the military, and a person, as you and I know and your listeners know, is not one individual, but a collection of various aspects, the good, the bad, the ugly, the wonderful person, the person who's jealous, mean, and all of that. And so you can look at somebody and say, who's the whole person here, rather than just one aspect. And maybe in General Petraeus' case, his military conduct over the years, his service to the country will prevail in most people's minds over this affair.
It's a great point, Sam Donaldson. If we're all judged by our worst day, none of us are getting into heaven.
And speaking of the Bible, judge not.
Yeah.
Be not judged.
Sam Donaldson, always a pleasure. Glad to hear you're feeling better. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Okay, McGraw.
Sam Donaldson here every Wednesday on the Big 550, KTRS. And if you missed any of that, want to see it again, we'll put that up on KTRS TV here at some point in the morning. And follow us on Twitter so you can get all of those feeds as we send them out through our social network. It's 7:20. We'll check sports in a moment, KTRS.